Hi there, this is Anthony from Force Ghost Conversations, and you are listening to the Rebel Base Card Podcast. Great pull, kid.
Well, I suppose I could hotwire this thing.
Everything's gonna be all right, kid.
You found the Rebel Base Card Podcast.
She may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts, kid.
I'm your host, Greg McLaughlin.
Have I made a few bad decisions? Sure.
We talk about cards, collecting Star Wars, and to people in the Star Wars community.
Don't worry, we're gonna meet up with some friends of mine.
Look for special episodes called The Breakfast Pack, talking about your favorite Star Wars shows.
We will never have a better chance than this.
All right, let's get started.
Well, perhaps it is time to begin again.
Welcome back, or if this is your first episode, welcome aboard. My name is Greg McLaughlin, and this is a special edition of the Rebel Base Card Podcast. We are recapping the events of Celebration 2025 Japan that just concluded, and there has been a deluge of information, but I had to corral in two folks I thought who pretty much, I don't think they got any sleep. I think they stayed up and watched it from wire to wire, and we're just as excited to talk about it. I mean, all the group chats were just exploding, the comments everywhere. The funnest thing I saw was like if you go on YouTube and you just watched a live chat and you couldn't even read it. I'm like, don't even bother trying to put something in the chat because it's just going by it so fast. However, I have two experts. I have Mary Purdue, of course, you all know, returning to the program, and Anthony King. Mary, I'll start with you. Before you crash and go to sleep, how was this weekend for you?
This weekend was a lot of fun. It really put me in sort of a weird kind of thing. At this point, I feel like I have jet lag without the jet. Because we started on Thursday evening, actually, and we finished up at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. So, and you had to keep thinking 13 hours ahead. You were, right. But it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I did it. Being retired definitely helps. And so crashing tomorrow is what I plan to do.
Awesome. Anthony, you kind of started, it's kind of funny, you kind of started doing like a pre-stream, and I hopped on and I was like, I'll be right back, and I never came. I did not do that on Ghost You on purpose, but you also spent a good deal of time catching everything. How do you feel about it as it just kind of is ending? How did you feel about the whole event?
Yeah, I think the event went great. As far as we can tell, the folks that were watching the live stream, there was really no hiccups technologically wise across the board. So it was a really streamlined process, I would say, from start to finish, so kudos to the team that put this on. And it made for, I would say, is arguably a good experience for those of us at home as possible. It's never going to replicate the actual feeling of being there and being amongst all the people. So definitely very much looking forward to the next one already. As one concludes, I'm like, all right, 2027, LA. What are the hotels? What are the things close by? What's the infrastructure like? How can we do this? But I think that's the joy of Celebration. It gives you that extra bit of energy to not only do stuff for the next 2 years in terms of content-wise for the podcast work that we do, but also to look forward to the next one where we can gather and be in these panels together and celebrate Star Wars for the 50th anniversary.
Exactly. And of course, since, the longer we go, the more people that we know in the community, and we were all, of course, following, Ross, Monica, Daz. I saw, Don Murphy, who was in the art show, all these folks that we know and follow and love. And it was kind of nice because we got to see a lot of celebration through their eyes, boots on the ground, some videos that I doubt will ever make it public as far as, Ross and Monica doing karaoke. But the less said about that, the better. What happens in Japan stays in Japan. But I can only imagine just from those images, just from the video, that anybody who went over there spent some time. I saw like some of the a picture from one of the blast points. They did their panel. You just saw a fragment, and I can imagine it was only nuts. And I know, we would be kind of getting up. They were, kind of winding down, and everybody just seems like they just hit the pillow, and boom, they were out. I know the Fantatrax guys were over there as well, but it just seemed like, you're right, Anthony. You can't really take it all in unless you're there. But even when you're there, like I said with Mary, it's like when you crash, because
Yeah.
even last weekend, when I was at C2, I was at there just that one day. I mean, like from the time the place opened till almost they were kicking you out, it didn't seem like there was enough time. And I'm sure even with the folks who had all 3 days there probably wasn't enough time. Do you
Never is.
think,
Agreed.
yeah, do you both think about the number of days makes a celebration? Do you think it can be done in 1, 2, 3 days, or does it need all 4 days, or so to speak? Yeah, Mary's.
Yeah, Mary's putting up a 4 for those that are listening here. I definitely think if you're attending a celebration, you definitely need at least 3 days, I think, in order to really get the whole grasp of the lay of the land and to feel comfortable with everything and to learn really the rules of celebration in a way, or any con you go to, you kind of got to figure out, all right, what is the process for making these things work? How long do I need to queue in a line in order to get into the panels I want to? Where's the food stations at? Where are the bathrooms at? Where are the different options for like accessibility things that I need in order to make sure I'm having a great time here? All those things kind of like is your first day. You're just kind of learning everything on the fly. And then really with day 2 and day 3, you're like, okay, I'm in the virtual queue for getting into the shopping lanes. I know I have to set aside this time for my meet and greet with this actor or actress or the photo opportunity that I have. So that means I can't do these panels. Oh no, I won't really want to do this panel today, so that means I have to queue for an hour to make sure I get a seat for it.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I'm going to send my number 2 with me, whether it's like a spouse, a partner, a sibling, a child, and send them to go get food. Yeah, if you have that
Divide
person,
and
right?
conquer.
Get food.
Pat them on,
Maybe you
yeah.
have your backpack with like 15 peanut butter bar, protein bars and all that
Uncrustables.
stuff, and Uncrustables. That's right. Stay hydrated, all the fun stuff. So I think really several, and ultimately it depends on what the content is of the celebration too. For this one, I think 3 days was probably it. I know it seemed like they were kind of dragging on Sunday to fill up some time in terms of like big panels, but maybe that was due to probably because of getting talent over to Japan and the difficulties in getting. But definitely for LA and even Chicago definitely deserved all 5 days from just watching it from home at that point, because there was something big every day for that, and if not multiple things each day. But I would say if you're attending a celebration in the future, at least plan to give 3 to 4 days, if that's the length of the thing. So do your best to be as much as you can.
Mary, you're
Yeah.
no stranger to celebrations, but I would say the number you have been to, even if you've gone to the same city, it probably seems like every time you're starting over.
It is. It's really strange. We started doing celebration in 2010, and Chaz was 8. He was going to turn 9 later in the year, but he was 8 at the time. And it was in Orlando, and 2012 was in Orlando. We did it, and it's a different animal now than what it was back then. I think Anaheim in 2015 kind of started the change a little bit. It seemed like it got a little bit bigger with that one. My perspective, that may not be other people's perspectives, but and then by the time we got to Chicago in 2017 and Anaheim again in
Chicago
Anaheim.
2019.
Chicago was 2019, Orlando 2017. The 2017 Orlando, it just exploded. And there were lots of issues. And what was really weird was that it was in the very same venue that 2010 and 2012 had been in. It was the Orange County Convention Center. Reed Pop had been doing it, for a while. And I don't know, it just, I think it has just gotten to be so popular. Like it's the it thing to do for Star Wars fans. And there are so many now, where before I think it was not quite as widespread, back, but with everything else going on now, the sequels coming out, the standalone movies, now the TV shows, the streaming shows, I think the fan base has multiplied. And so then you have something like Celebration that multiplies, right along with it. And you're right. It is a different animal every single time. And I was texting good friends Christina and Kendra, who are Australian, and they were only 9 hours away. It sounds like it would be shorter than that, but it's a long ocean between Australia up to Japan. And but they had not been to, as far as I know, they had not been to a celebration before, and so I was trying to give them some tips of how of doing some things. And but not being there, you don't, like Anthony said, we were only seeing what was going on in a live stage.
Mm-hmm.
As far as being able to see a wide scope, you're seeing some of what's going on in the panels, but everybody's sitting down in a panel, so we didn't really see like the show floor,
Right.
the art store, that type of stuff. We weren't privy to any of that, but every year it gets bigger, and every year it's just a different animal. And that's what I have always found. Anthony was hitting it right on the head. When it's a 4-day, especially, and Chicago was the 5-day, so that was amazing. But with the 4-day, that Thursday, that's your day to get in there, because usually there's not a lot going on that Thursday. They usually don't have, or sometimes they do, but they didn't have big panels a lot of times on the Thursday. And so that was your time to, like you said, figure out where everything is, get your bearings. If it's a north, like in Orlando, you have a north concourse and a south concourse, or everything's over in the west building or whatever. And same thing with like Anaheim, that convention center. So, it's just getting your bearings, figuring out where everything is, getting that schedule, writing down this is what I want to do, and realizing that there is no earthly way that you're going to do everything you want to do. And especially if you're going to do any photo ops, especially with the big ones, or or any autographing. I think there were some major issues from what I've seen with Hayden this weekend, and with Diego, because especially Diego, I'm not sure that he's actually done signings or photo ops before this. So, but I felt sorry for the people that had Hayden Christensen, because anybody who had him Sunday, I think they refunded their money. I don't think anybody got photos or autographs with him because they so oversold him. And then they were pulling him out to be on stage at different times. So not his fault. These things are hardly ever the celebrity fault, because they're being pulled to do different things, so, but yeah, you just have to get the lay of land. The 4 days, I think, is great. I know that the people who had VIPs, they got to go to the Celebration store on Thursday. So that was part of that, $1,000 or whatever it was that they paid to be a VIP. So, which is nice, because then they could get in. But then the other thing I saw was that it was a mess. They didn't have everything up and going, and things were just in boxes and thrown around. So, but the other thing that you have to remember, and that's what I was telling some other people that I knew. I mean, we had so many friends that were over there. And some of them were a little bit more newbies. Others were, more seasoned like us. But, we were just saying to them, you have to realize that the majority of the people that are working that Celebration store, or helping out on the show floor, or helping out in the panels, they're normally unpaid volunteers. And
that's a good point.
Sometimes they're the ones who catch the flack when it's not their fault if something crazy is happening, or, they didn't get to meet Hayden, or, whatever it might be. So, but, we go to MegaCon down here in Orlando, same issues. I'm sure C2E2, same issues. I'm sure New York Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con. I mean, you just have to go into it realizing that things are going to happen. You don't have control, and you just got to go with the flow. And that's what my two friends from Australia finally said. We're just going with the flow, and they had a great time.
Yeah, that says something. Anthony, you and Mary both have had celebrations in your backyard, and it's one thing if you go to a photo op, right, like a big name photo op, and something happens. Okay, it sucks, but it is what it is. It's another thing if you have traveled a long way and you have your hopes set on this thing and something happens. But I would say, when you go to someplace else, your expectations, you're already jet laggy. You're already kind of like, you're running around and you see this, like what's kind of your perspective when, you're somewhere else, like, and then all of a sudden all this, what kind of is going through your head?
Well, I think you just got to kind of go with the flow a little bit there. Once you accept that everything's out of your control, then you start to just appreciate the things around you a lot more. So, I'll talk, I've only been to one celebration so far, and this has been in Anaheim, and there was one panel that I was really trying to get into, and then I didn't get into it. And then I pivoted and went to another panel that was open still, and I really had a wonderful time at that panel as well. So it's always being like, okay with your plan Bs and plan Cs and plan Ds even, because let's just say there's always something to do as long as the gates are open and the doors are open and people are coming in and out. You walk down the hall, you're going to see 15,000 Mandalorian people in costume. You can take photos with them, you can chat them up and have a great conversation with somebody potentially. So it's always, you're going to miss out on something. And once you accept that things are going to happen, logistics are a big part of making these things work and operate. And just for any convention, right? If you apply the same type of mentality to it, I think you're going to have a wonderful experience at the end of all things here. And for the things that you really, really, really want to do, then you have to make the absolute most amount of your time focused on doing that. So you might need to queue in a line for upwards of 2 hours plus in order to get into a certain panel. The things that are a person misses their time slot or frankly, being in a line for hours that you weren't expecting to do, right, for a meet and greet that you paid for, that would be the hardest pill to swallow, right? If you're told, hey, you've been standing in line here for 5 hours, I'm so sorry, but he's not coming. At least you're refunded, hopefully. But the time is money aspect comes into play there as well, where you're like, okay, I paid upwards of $200 probably for the celebration 3-day pass or something like that. And great, you can actually do the math and figure out how much a end of time equals in terms of the monetary value while you're there. And you're like, great, I just stood in line and could have been doing things on the show floor or attending a panel or going to the celebration show store and all that. And that would be the hardest thing personally. But I think just the mentality of kind of almost being like a Jedi in a way and fusing that type of mentality into these things where you're letting go of things that aren't in your control would be the ultimate way to achieve utter serenity when you're at a celebration and then hopefully get the most out of your experience.
Well, one thing also is that, I think the pressure is on as these celebrations go on. I'm kind of looking. Yeah. I'm looking at the number of shirts that Daz had to wear on a daily basis, and who was not following. Going, is he wearing my shirt today? He's going to have to start changing shirts midday to keep up with it because I'm like, oh, he's wearing that shirt for that one, like between Force Ghost, between the Colby cast, between, I'm just like, now I'm like, all right, hey, we got to get a CWK shirt in there. We got to get some other, we got to get a reaction.
Need more days
Okay, good.
Yeah, I saw CWK. I did.
If there's more days of the convention, then Daz has more opportunity to wear more shirts.
He's going to start charging us for it. I know this is coming.
That's
he's
right.
going to be
free
like,
advertising is.
I'll give you 5 hours at $50 a pop.
At this rate, 3 photos minimum.
Exactly.
Force Ghost gets the morning, Rebel Base gets the afternoon, next day Colby cast, and CWK.
He's going to have a schedule, celebration shirt schedule.
It's like go in the bathroom, change. It's like Superman. Go in the bathroom.
Yep.
Which is
start
fine.
calling Daz Superman.
You take them off because like you're sweating through the stuff because you're like going back and forth through it.
You do. Oh my gosh.
Speaking of schedule, I know that I want to start with you, Anthony. Let's talk Friday. I thought it really was strong because all of a sudden we saw Hayden on day one. But what were some of the highlights for you from the first day of celebration, and were you kind of blown away by some of the announcements?
Well, I think Friday was arguably the biggest day in terms of announcements. I think they really set the tone. So most celebrations will have the biggest panel of the weekend, the first one, whether it's a showcase panel, and this one particularly was the Mandalorian and Grogu panel. So in this one, that's where ostensibly I expected it would be a big, let's talk about the Mandalorian and Grogu, let's bring out a lot of the cast, let's show a trailer. The film comes out in May 2026. Theoretically, you could release a trailer now, a little teaser, and have that floating around. I mean, they did with The Force Awakens roughly 13 months ahead of its release, and that did just fine. But they didn't do that per se with this one. But this one really subverted my expectations a little bit in terms of what I went into it expecting. I think they did not what they would typically do for a celebration, a panel of this magnitude, I would say. In my mind, it kind of goes back to like a Last Jedi panel from 2017, or even like the Rise of Skywalker one from 2019, where they literally just have like a bunch of chairs for the cast, bring everyone out. They talk about their characters for like 2 or 3 minutes, show a couple pictures on screen, and then show the trailer at the end, show the trailer again, and then boom, celebration has started. That was not the case with this one. They changed things a bit differently for this, and this was not shown on the live stream. So that's the downside to this one, is that they followed the trend a little bit with recent celebrations where they have started to not show major panels of this caliber. 2022 is where they really started doing that. And then 2023 in London, they also continued that trend. So thankfully they didn't after this one. They showed all the major panels beyond this, which is kind of interesting because there was really nothing shown here that would have really blew the walls off of things, and they could always just like turn away the live stream like they did later on if they didn't want to showcase anything that wasn't ready quite yet for, or they wanted to make it really special for the folks in the room. Like I don't know what the choice was behind all that, but I somehow was able to watch the entirety of the panel because someone was on TikTok live and was live streaming the entirety of it. So I had double duty going on. So as you mentioned, Hayden was on the live stage, and they kind of started the live stream a bit sooner on that, so they had multiple people coming to the through the stage and chatting with them on a variety of different topics. So that was going on while at the same time I'm looking at my phone and watching everything that's going on here. So I had like one eye on one screen, one on the other, and really trying to follow along with all those things. But ultimately, when that so I did an Instagram Ask Me Anything, as both of you joined on Thursday very kindly before the whole shebang of celebration got going. And one of the questions was that I received there was, do I think that any other film will be talked about in this panel or over the course of the weekend? And I thought that'd be a no, just out of celebration history, where if it specifically says The Mandalorian and Grogu, they're going to talk about The Mandalorian and Grogu for an hour and really hype up this film, especially because this is the only celebration that it has before it comes out next May. So they're going to really push the marketing of this, or at least get that ball rolling right now. No, that is actually quite the opposite here. So first and foremost, they get the celebration thing going. They get Dave Filoni out on stage. They get Kathleen Kennedy out. And Kathleen Kennedy just starts saying like, hey, we got some films in actual development, guys. And says like Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's Rey film is in the works still. Taika Waititi's film, can't believe that even got a mention, is still in the works.
Yeah, really.
The Simon Kinberg trilogy that was kind of just named a couple months ago got dropped there as well. I think the James Mangold one was name dropped as well to all be in actual development. And then she's like, hey, we got another one actually too. And this is when they bring out Sean Levy, director of Deadpool and Wolverine, and I believe Free Guy, and he's had a hand in Stranger Things over the last couple of years. I just learned at the gym the other day that he directed Cheaper by the Dozen. So if anyone remembers that classic Steve Martin film from the early 2000s. He's
been around.
He's been around, that's for sure. And now he's in the Star Wars galaxy, and he talked about the new film that he's working on and confirmed the rumor. He did a wonderful job of playing this up, that Ryan Gosling is actually going to be the lead in the movie, and brought Ryan out too, who looked severely jet lagged. I will admit, it looked like they just threw him on a plane quickly and brought him out to Japan, and then he stumbled up on stage and chatted about the movie for a little bit there and how excited they are to get rolling, because cameras are going to start rolling in fall for this thing with a release date of May 28th, 2027. So just 3 days after the 50th anniversary of Star Wars: A New Hope, we'll have a new Star Wars film in the theaters, which I think will be awesome. And we got the title, which is Star Wars Starfighter. And I'm very excited for just that name drop. It sounds to me like it'll be some type of pilot-esque film. They also very much were on the talking points of this is a new thing. It's not a prequel. It's not a sequel with new characters,
Yes.
different part of the galaxy.
Standalone.
Not connected to anything in the Skywalker saga. And that was awesome to both hear, but also just to like, I'm glad that we're getting new stories in the Star Wars galaxy. Outside of that stuff, it sounds like a fresh entryway for people into the fan base. 50 years beyond to really get a hold on this franchise if you want. I think pilots are a fun way to. It's that war part of Star Wars that I think a lot of people find as their entryway that they were really interested in. And Ryan Gosling is definitely an A-list talent, which is a great way to market a new era of Star Wars films. So that was wonderful to get that news. And then Dave, John Favreau, and Katie all talked about The Mandalorian and Grogu. Sigourney Weaver came out. Pedro Pascal was also there. They chatted a little bit about the movie, didn't give away too many details the way that I thought they would. And then I got to see a little bit of the footage for The Mandalorian and Grogu that they didn't not really share with anybody outside of the room, but I got to see just because of a TikToker streaming it live.
It leaked pretty quickly.
It
was
leaked
on a
there.
number of flat platforms. It leaked faster than I thought it
sure
would.
did leak, but then Disney got their hands on those and shut those down pretty fast.
Yep.
So if you got to see it ahead of time, then you're lucky you.
I did.
It was a pretty good action sequences. Honestly, I think it would have been fine to show. I don't think there was anything revelatory about it there. Just the Mandalorian doing some fun action. So I won't really spoil what I saw there. But just confirming that it looks like it's going to be an awesome movie, and can't wait to see it when it comes out. So that was my big thing, is like, all right, we're kicking this off. Movies in development. We're moving forward with things. Didn't think we'd get a title for the Sean Levy film. In fact, I didn't even think that the Sean Levy film would happen, to be honest. So like, they're not only are they saying it's happening, we're rolling in fall. It's coming out in May 27. I was like, great, let's do it. Sign me up. I'm all in on it. And that was a great way to kick off Celebration.
It was. And, what's really interesting is the last couple of celebrations and D23s as they come out and they announce these different movies, and then nothing happens and they disappear and they quit talking about them, or they say, whatever. And so I'm sorry, but the fandom, our confidence level is way low when it comes to these announcements. And the Jedi Talk guys, podcast guys, Tom put up a thing right after that and said, what do you feel, or of day one, what did you feel like you were the most confident about, or you were most interested in? And I said, I finally have a confident feeling about, besides Mando and Grogu, but that I have a confident feeling that something is coming out that they've announced it's actually coming out.
Right.
But I felt like, of course, I didn't get to see the panel. I just was watching, like you, Anthony, I had 2 laptops up. I had one laptop connected to my TV. The other laptop I had up, I think the Wayseekers guys for some of it, and into a Larger World project. I had Kara DJ up some.
Nice.
And a lot of people were doing the live stream like you were, but I'm not on Threads and Blue Sky, so I couldn't follow you. But anyway, a number of people said they felt like that they misnamed that first panel, that it should not have been Mando and Grogu. It should have been Lucasfilm again.
It should have been looking
panel.
toward the next couple of films.
Yeah,
but they didn't want to spoil the announcement. I guess that's where it ultimately came from. In terms of it being a Mandalorian Grogu panel, it kind of wasn't. It was overshadowed, I think, very much by the announcement.
Yeah, exactly. So some of the things that I enjoyed as far as the other panels that we actually saw that day, we got to see that animation panel was that day, right?
Yep, that was. Okay. That's what closed it out.
That's what I thought. I'm like, okay, I'm looking at my 12 pages of notes. That's always the count. It's like I'm always giving the group chat my count, my page count. But the Lucasfilm Publishing, I thought that was a great panel. They had a lot of those publishers there, and the High Republic people were thrilled to hear some of the things. And it sounds like there might be some other things coming down the pike that's going to be nice, that will go along with High Republic, but comics, and I mean, they had a lot of announcements. Mm-hmm. They talked about a lot of stuff, and so I thought, okay, this is great. And I'm not a comic person, and we've talked about this. I'm the omnibus person. I want let all of it get published, and then give me the big book so I can look at all of it at one time. But the animation panel, I was so thrilled that they showed that one. And just. But that was one, like you were talking
all the way
about,
up to what they didn't show.
Exactly. That's the same. That was one of them that's like, it was great. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. And I had friends in that panel. And so they, in real life friends, right? And not just following on Twitter or wherever, but, and they're like, I said, oh man, I can't believe they didn't announce, an actual new show, because they had been kind of teasing that the last little bit. And just as soon as that came out of my mouth, I said to Chaz, yeah, they cut it. I knew they were showing that first episode of Tales of the Underworld. Well, that was obvious, and that's why they cut it. But then they didn't come back, obviously. And then they made the announcement about Maul Shadow Lord. And so I had just said to Chaz, I can't believe that they, that we're not getting a real honest to God animation show. And then my friend was like, oh my gosh, they just announced, and I'm like, okay, I guess I manifested that one out there. So and that is one, I don't know if you guys saw it. I actively went out there looking to see if anybody leaked that little bit of a sizzle reel, and I couldn't find it anywhere.
Mary,
did you find it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess I looked too soon, and then I quit looking. I don't know, but I saw some pictures. I did see a couple of stills that a few people had put up, but of course I saw, and then everybody I think saw Maul lighting his saber, at the end of the tunnel, and you could see his face and whatever. But so we're really excited about that one. So that's that was a fun one. But yeah, so I'm like, dang it! I'm like, oh, okay, I understand.
Yeah, and that was a big one too, because where it takes place in the timeline. So it's 1 year after Clone Wars, right? Where it starts. This is directly going to tell Maul's story with Crimson Dawn and beyond.
Yeah.
That's through all the way to where we find him at Rebels. So that's like, what, 16, 15 years in between there? Yeah. So how many seasons can we milk out of this thing for the near future? That sounds awesome.
I know.
It's not going to be like a 3-season, 4-season kind of endeavor. I'm looking forward to like a nice 7 or 8 seasons that we can really dive into the underworld beyond.
Just on that, I was going to say, like, for those of you who saw, and like me, you're seeing it through the eyes of a very blurry TikTok video. It looked like the Clone Wars style animation, right?
Very much so, yeah.
Okay, because I was going to say it was
one of those. I saw it did, yeah.
You're watching. I'm like, okay, I think that's and of course, there's also a subset because we did see another character. I'm not going to spoil that one, but it's one of those things. I think it'll make a certain subset incredibly happy because you see that particular character that
extended universe people, yeah.
And you're like, all right, but the other thing that I was just going to say on that, I thought that seemed like we've kind of talked about like when Lucasfilm dares to dream and what happens when they kind of take some chances. It did seem that you go, oh, Anthony, we're going back to Maul again, the Maul well as it is, but it also almost, like, I'd hate to say it, I don't want to say maybe they're playing it safe, but I'm like, yeah, that you are kind of playing the hits, because who doesn't want to hear Sam Witwer, who doesn't want to see Maul, and that'll be some, like,
Sure.
I would just kind of hope that when you do it, like I guess what some of the characters that we saw, you're like, okay, let's take some chances, but on the other hand, well-worn animation style, fan favorite character, go nuts. But you go, okay, yeah, that team seemed to me, I wasn't as surprised, as it were. Same
Sure.
with you
I
too?
mean, I don't disagree with it in being a safe choice. I think this is definitely a easy home run if you're looking for that in terms of the fandom, right? This isn't as hard of a sell as perhaps say Bad Batch is, right? Who is Bad Batch? What is Bad Batch, right? Backdoor pilot in Clone Wars season 7, and then go with us on this 3-season journey here. This is very much like once people, if you're a normie, quote unquote, get past the Maul survived kind of debate that people still have. Yeah, and that too.
Somehow Maul came back.
Somehow again, yeah.
Maul came back again.
I think that where this story can go in terms of showcasing again this dark times era of Star Wars, what's going on underneath the grips of the Empire, who are the characters that we can be introduced because of this. How does Crimson Dawn start? How does Maul get involved with that? Where's Dryden Voss in all this? And ostensibly, this once, probably not at the start, but a few years into this, we could theoretically get some of the lingering pieces of like what could have been in perhaps a Solo 2.
Thank you.
In the story, which I think is really awesome. It may not be in the exact product that people wanted it to be per se. It's not exactly Solo 2 with Alden Ehrenreich and all the team, but it could flesh out some of those story details of, okay, Kira, come to me on Dathomir, and where does that story go from there? And does Han and Lando and all those guys appear in the later seasons of this once they get everything established and all that, and we can find out the demise of Crimson Dawn, and if this ends with somehow Maul ending on Malachor and getting stuck there, that'd be awesome. Let's fill in some of those gaps and figure this out.
I think what needs to happen is that I need to see a shirt that has, save Clone Wars crossed out, save Solo crossed out, and then whatever next we're gonna save. Because I was gonna say it does seem like make the Solo 2 prequel happen. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that does really kind of backdoor into an area that I think was going to be fertile ground. And if it's animation, you could, in theory, bring in some voices of folks that, hey,
absolutely,
we don't need you to cut. We don't need you to wardrobe up. You just need to go to a studio of your choosing and cut some audio, and we'll just
for the right price
truck up.
We'll do it
for the right.
Yeah,
we'll
absolutely.
Back up a bunch of money.
Back up that truck. That one of the things that I really thought was interesting all weekend long. Was Dave Filoni and how emotional. And Dave, in the past, I don't feel like really has been. And when it all sort of started years ago, he had issues, even speaking in panels, and then people were like trying to pull things out of him, not secrets, just trying to get him to open up and talk more and whatever. And there was a number of times over the entire weekend that I thought, this man's going to start crying. I mean, he really got emotional, talking in the Ahsoka panel, talking about Ray Stevenson. I mean, that was palpable. You could feel that. I don't know how it felt in the room, but I'm telling you, through the TV screen, he was putting it out there. But one of the things that I thought that was really interesting that he said and talked about the clones. You mentioned, Anthony, the Bad Batch, and I love that series. I thought that series was fantastic. And I don't know if you guys saw the pictures and the videos, but there was one young lady who did an amazing Omega cosplay. She was fat. Friends of ours have a couple little girls, and they got pictures with her, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But Dave was talking about the clones and how under the Jedi, even though the clones were all, clones of Jango Fett and had the basic same workings, they were all very individualized, and the Jedi allowed them to be individualized. But once the Empire took over, before the stormtroopers came in, even while it was still the clones transitioning, as we saw in Bad Batch, that they went back to being numbers and they were not individual, and they, so I thought that was just the way he was talking about it. I thought that was very insightful, and so you're thinking, okay, somewhere along the way, are we going to get a little bit more about that? Or if it was just a general, talking about, what's happened in the past and how he's felt about Clone Wars, the being about the clones through Ahsoka's eyes and what was going on, and then the Bad Batch. Right. And so so where are we going from there? But I thought that was of course, I didn't get to see, like we said, I didn't get to see the Mando panel, but that animation panel I thought was outstanding until they cut it off and we couldn't see it.
Until they cut it off. It was jarring at some points where you'd be kind of like, I think seeing the YouTube, like you could have some stuff kind of going, people are sitting down and they're talking. And so you're not necessarily going, okay, they're not acting out stuff. And so you're kind of like doing laundry and stuff. And it would be kind of jarring because you'd see like part of a panel and you're going, oh, this is great. And all of a sudden you just kind of like, wait, what happened? It just seemed like it just like without kind of warning. But,
and I understand that. In a way, I don't have an issue with that because I'm sitting at home. And I didn't pay anything to sit at home except for my electricity bill maybe going up a little bit.
Don't give me any
all
ideas.
night long. But to have things that are just special for the people who are there, but at some point, like there are a couple of things in 2023 I don't think ever hit the public realm. And, so like at some point, let us see these things. But
yeah, they had like that Gwendolyn Christie panel and like a couple of the side, basically like a sidekick panel here. And like that could have easily been shown. There was no revelatory details there. It was just them reminiscing about their experience in Star Wars.
Anyway, but I thought day one was good. I mean, I thought there was a lot of things going on and it went well.
Yeah, I mean, I will second that. We didn't even talk about there was a whole light and magic panel too that they showed. Had the season 2 come out also the same day, which I'm like, why have a panel for something when it comes out the same day? Like they could have released it like 2 weeks from now, and then we are all the more hyped, and they released a trailer for something that's already out. I don't know the whole marketing choice behind all this, but ultimately what I was getting at here is, Mary, you've seen not the dark times per se of Star Wars Celebration, but the days where it was like a Clone Wars trailer for the upcoming season was the big talking point of a full 3-4 day celebration. And now that we have 4 panels that could have been technically the it thing of the entire weekend 10-15 years ago, and we're like, that was just day 1. We have 2 more days of stuff that's still going to hit you with some great announcements and details. It's a great time to be a Star Wars fan. I'm just getting to that point there.
Yeah.
We'll tell you what. Let's move into day 2, right? Yeah. As we get up and what do you?
But before we do, I'm just I know my 9 pages of notes. But just to shout out to the live stage, because, and this is what I was telling some of our friends who this was either their first or second celebration, is don't sleep on the live stage, because within 15 minutes or so of those big panels, whoever was in the panel, they come over to the live stage. And I don't know if you noticed this, Anthony, but I thought that they stayed on the live stage longer this year than what they have in the past.
I would say that's correct. I think that's just a byproduct of we don't have as many celebrities over here as we would have in a 4 or 5 day celebration in the States. Again, a lot harder to get people out there. So let's chat up Mads Mikkelsen for 10 minutes longer than we typically would.
Let's bring Favreau out again.
Yeah, let's
just
bring,
again.
I'll be honest. A day 2, when they went past 5 o'clock Eastern time in the morning, and Ashley Eckstein and Alan Tudyk both came out when they had already been on this live stage before. Like, okay, we should wrap this up, guys. I want to get to bed here.
Ahmad Best came out a couple of times. Ashley came out a couple of times. And, a few of them did. But But each time they came out, they were talking about something different.
Yep, they highlighted
So,
other things, and
yeah.
Ahmad Best was the man announcing all the stuff on the live stage too. It wasn't just like panels getting announcements for things; the live stage was getting some exclusives.
Yeah, and if you follow him on socials, he was talking about that 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was
Yeah.
like, "Don't sleep on the live stage. Don't sleep on some of the things. Make sure you're following me. I have some great announcements." And so, yeah, I think they really, I think, honestly, I think in a way that they saw how much he has become important to the young adults now, like Anthony, like your age,
Mm-hmm.
who
Oh
the
yeah,
prequels were your in way into
absolutely.
Star Wars, and you all, the kids loved Jar Jar. I mean, I was an adult. I mean, I didn't mind Jar Jar, but there were issues obviously that happened, and thank goodness we didn't have the social media that we have now. But I think, when he came out on the stage for that was it the Attack of the Clones panel a few years ago, and we were setting up in the nosebleed section, and that auditorium went crazy. Like it. So I think that was the first time that, in my opinion, that he and Disney and Lucasfilm went, hold on. Maybe we have a diamond in the rough here, and we need to, and so then we have Keller and Beck, and,
A
so
lot of
all the
millennials
things,
have money now.
absolutely, they're not little kids running
Financial
around
decisions
who
are being made.
exactly. Yeah. So anyway, the live stage was always, I mean, they always had something. Now, yes, last night, the live stage was not the best. That, like you said, I think
You
3
telling me the
days.
Fortnite reveal wasn't your favorite, Mary?
Oh,
But Chaz was in there watching that one, so yeah.
that's fine.
But he's like, but he and his buddies were all in there. They all had it all tuned in for that. But I think they were stretching there at the end. They were trying to just see what they can pull out. Yeah.
Yep. Who can we sit here and talk to for 20 minutes? Let's figure this out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So we moved
Day
into, let's get our notes ready for day 2. Man, I'm just seeing the notes. That's nuts. This is one
When
of those.
does day
like
2 start, Mary? Is it page 6, 4, 5?
Yeah. Well, it was like page tech. Okay. So this is what I did. I had a set of pages for panels, and I had a set of pages for live stage. I kept them separate.
Kids, show your work. Take a cue from there. Show your work. Be prepared.
That is the business
show your
teacher
work.
in me. Sorry, guys.
I'm telling you. All right, Anthony, why don't you do me a favor? Why don't you break down the major events, and then we're going to go back as Mary is shuffling day 2 notes. And give us the
my
color
notes are all
commentary.
digital, so my record
I'm old. Anthony,
is
I'm
on,
old.
We're not note shaming people. I'm just saying.
No, exactly not. All of mine are on my Blue Sky and Threads whole profile there.
Screenshots of threads.
Screenshots.
Yes. Basically, for day 2, I would say the big panels were the Andor season 2 panel, and then the Ahsoka look back. But also, we're going to mostly talk about looking ahead for Ahsoka season 2 in this panel. Honestly, I was kind of like, why are we even doing an Andor panel when they announced it a few weeks ago for the full thing that they're doing at Celebration? Just because, similar to Light and Magic season 2 panel, it's literally coming out the same day, and for Andor, it comes out on Tuesday. So it's like, what are they going to do other than show an episode to people? Right. They're not going to reveal anything that we didn't know really already. If anything, there's going to be really coy about things and just say, hey, go watch it. It comes out in a few days. Be excited for it. It's not like they're going to showcase a new poster or anything like that. So I kind of went into this panel perhaps the least excited of any of the big ones that were announced heading into this. All that to be said, it won me over. They did a great job of giving more pieces of information that and their candor and banter on stage was really engaging and fun to listen to from home. I'm glad that they showed this panel too.
Yeah, me too. I was
So,
thrilled.
Yeah.
that was a really good one. I think if you didn't get a chance to watch this one before Andor season 2 starts, go back and check it out because a little bit more into the headspace of where these characters are, a little bit of teases as to like where the first season, the first episodes of the season starts. It sounds like it's going to be the thing on Chandrilla, Mon Mothma's daughter. So they're moving that story along. It sounds like every character from season 1 is going to have somewhat of a conclusion to their character arcs in some way at the end of all this. So just it highlighted all the things that I wanted to hear, and then gave me some more, and made me even more excited for this thing that comes out in just 2 days now on the East Coast time. By this time Tuesday, we'll be sitting down on our couches to hit play on episode 1 of season 2 and watch a full movie. And then the fun of podcasts fitting in when we talk about it before the next movie comes out the following week. So that was a great way to kick off the Saturday at all. And then the Ahsoka panel was great too, where they looked back on things and shared some details that I think were pretty, I would say, well known over the last couple of years, like George Lucas being on set and the backdoor pilot from The Mandalorian of Ahsoka and all of that. Mm-hmm. Nice to hear things like Hayden's coming back officially for season 2. The official announcement of Ray Stevenson's recasting with McCann, I think, was just nice to have that moment and to acknowledge that. Some of the detail bits of where we're going to, even though they haven't even officially shot any footage yet. They start filming, they said, in 4 days. So it's next week here. They're starting to film Ahsoka season 2.
In London.
Means they're flying over to London volume. Yep. And taking care of all of that. Akbar is going to be back. Half of the thing is going to be space battle. Sounds like Akbar versus Thrawn. Yep. So really excited for that.
The Mortis gods.
The Mortis gods are coming back in some way, shape, or form. Anakin's going to be involved. A lot more Ezra, a lot more Thrawn, a lot more Chopper. Chopper is going to be war criming it all up over the place.
War criminal that is. Aaron Harris is going to be in.
Yes,
that's right. That's right. But I will say the Loth kittens are.
I was going to say 2 words: Loth kitties.
Yeah. The highlight to take away from this, folks, if you didn't hear about them, they are little Loth cats, so they haven't yet quite matured, and because of that, apparently their legs are so frail at this point that they can't even use them yet. So to get from point A to point B, there are these little balls of hair that have to roll from one place to another. Oh no! The money is already being sent in truckloads to Disney and Lucasfilm for the future marketing opportunities for this thing. I can only imagine that Mary, Back to East and Back to West are going to be filled with these Loth kittens that are going to be roaming around Batu. I can't wait for this.
I saw that picture, the photo or the drawing that David then put up of the Loth kitties, and first thought was, oh my gosh, we all have to have one of those. And the second thought was, oh, they're tribbles with feet and faces. If you're a Trekkie, you understand that reference.
Oh, the money is just gonna,
it's gonna roll. Well, Dave even said that. He's like, I know this is going to hit the market and Galaxy's Edge quickly. He even made that statement. So
probably pay for a season of Ahsoka through the sales.
It could.
Doorables.
It'll pay for all of the the purchase of Lucasfilm.
Yeah,
it's gonna go that far.
Honestly, yeah, it's funny.
One of the things I did like, they did have the reveal. Of course, Ray Stevenson passed before. Yeah. Ahsoka season 1 came out, but how did we feel about the reveal of the new actor who's playing?
I mean, I'm for it. It was something I was speculating. I hope they would address in the lead up to this. It was a rumor going around the internet that this had been done, and the fact that there was a confirmation rather than jumping around it and then hoping for it to be some reveal of some sorts in when Ahsoka season 2 comes out in 2026. It sounds like. They did it with the greatest class that they could for a character that really I would say stole the show in many scenes for that series. Yeah.
And that was the other thing, is he was so good, and you could tell.
Yeah, he wrote himself into the second season by being so good.
He did, and all the things that they did prior to the first season coming out, and all the promos they did, and how excited he was. And then when we finally got to the show and could see it, he had already passed. And I think that even endeared his character to everybody even more. And so, but even at the end, and he was standing on the hand of the father, of the Mortis. If you don't know Mortis, I'm sorry, go back and watch Clone Wars. But
you got time.
You got time. You got plenty of time to hit the Mortis.
spoiler.
You got plenty of time to hit the Mortis arc. But that was instantly what was going on in social media. We have to have more Balin Skull, but how do we do it? And I mean, I think it was something that they worked through. And Dave even said that they talked with Ray Stevenson's family, and that he and Rory McCann were friends, that they knew one another. And so I've seen Rory McCann in a few things in Game of Thrones and whatever. A totally different character, but the man can act. So and obviously Balin is going to be doing something a little bit differently in the second season than what he did in the first season. So I think that's going to lend okay to it being another person. But but I'm excited to see where they go with that. And a lot of people that know me well, Ahsoka was not. I mean, Ahsoka. I love Ahsoka. All right, the character, but the live action was not my favorite thing when all that went down, just because of things that went down. But I enjoyed the season, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And with Hayden there, we know he's going to be there. Obviously, there are other rumors about who else might show up in Clone Wars armor. So hopefully that can happen, and we can see some of that. But I think Dave knows where he wants to go with it, and apparently there are going to be 8 episodes. He said in a Collider, and that he has written all of them.
Got the writing.
So I mean, these are his babies that he created with George. And the other thing that he kept saying, I mean, Dave was having some true Zen moments this weekend. I really felt, because he kept saying he wanted to make sure that the things that they do honor what came before and what George had created and the things that they did in Clone Wars. I think his age and his experience, and now dealing with live action and animation both, I think he has a whole new perspective. And I was really happy to hear both him and Rosario Dawson give Ashley her flowers, that she is the heart and soul of Ahsoka to begin with. And then to see Ash come out and announce that she's the Brickhead's Ahsoka in the Rebuilding the Galaxy, that was nice. That was a lot of fun. So it was a lot of Ahsoka, fun stuff for this weekend as well, in a couple of different ways. So, but it was a good panel. I mean, I think they did a really nice job of what was and what's to come. So
that's nice. I mean, you kind of want to see, like I said, there were some shortcomings in Ahsoka. I really liked it. Yeah. But, when you go back and you have that, Acolyte won't have that, to go back and kind of fix things. And so in this case, I think you have to take Ahsoka season 2 as kind of a gift. Really, it's like, okay, we're going to come in probably with a little higher expectations, but I'm like, everything that was announced, even, like players like that, the pieces are there. You already kind of know how many shows you're going to get. I just think it's really nice that I think the story may flow a little better because I think we have all the knows, all the knows that we know. And in this case, where I think Ahsoka, I think a lot of this stuff was there. I mean, I loved all the characters, Morgan Elsbeth, and all that. Sabine. I mean, it was a greatest hits. But now it's like, all right, let's see. And in Ahsoka seemed like Mando in its times and things like that. So I think I'll go in. Just happy that we're going to get, we're not going to leave Balin on a cliff somewhere. Yeah. And we're not going to leave
standing on the father's finger.
And we need to get Ezra out of the Stormtrooper armor. We need to get Thrawn going. So all this stuff is like, you got it all there. You're going to have to pack it in there. I don't think there's going to be any time for any kind of like filler talk, which I hate, but it's
with only 8 episodes.
I know. And, we're going to see Chopper again. I mean, like, yeah, Aaron's going to be like, yeah. So sign me up, and it's nice. Ed, anyway, any other real big highlights for day 2 before we kind of move on?
They announced a new video game, Zero Company.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't really understand what it means by a turn-based first-player and strategy game. One day I'll figure it out when it comes out in 2026.
Well, I mean, it's no different probably than, if you're playing a Warhammer 40K or any tabletop game where it's like your turn, you get to set everything up in motion, you do all your stuff, and then the other ones kind of react to it. That actually may not be bad. Right. As long as I don't have to like slide over ice and kill, no.
Don't bring me back into Survivor mode.
Nobody survives. Nobody survives if I'm playing the Jedi. So it's like, sorry, man. And anyway, all right. As Mary, how was your notes? How was your rest of your notes for
They're good.
Day 2?
I'm just kind of looking through them, seeing if there's anything else. I think that's.
But I did like seeing the live stage, and you brought it up. I think Mary. I was kind of looking for like Sigourney Weaver hitting the live stage.
Yeah.
She
bless her heart.
Oh my gosh, some of these people, you're like, this is like Ryan Gosling, same thing, where they're just kind of looking around and they're going,
what in the world?
Nice.
They didn't know what they were walking into.
They did not. I don't think they did either. I don't think that they were prepared enough.
That's where I could really tell Ryan was just off of plane.
Yeah. There's like, what is going on? Yeah.
But it was nice because I think those elements, right? Everything which is, like all the stuff has been mapped out, it's been all this, but I think in some cases the live stage maybe more so than the panels because we can kind of pull back. The panels is sort of like there and they don't really have cameras on there where it's like the live stage. Every time they're going to the long shot, I'm looking at the fringes to try to see what else is going on out there. It's like, but on the one hand, I really like that because especially with some of these, it's their first time out and they're saying that. And I that really felt, and sometimes they would address. And I remember, in Anaheim when Ewan was distracted by somebody out there and he's just like, and they responded to me going, that you just made that person's life. They just like,
not
they
today.
stopped.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it. And then everybody, I'm sitting here thinking like, thanks to, Frank and Amy for like allowing me to get up there because they were camped out in Anaheim and you got to see like, man, all this stuff happening. So anybody who was out there, and we saw like Ross, I think made the video one time. I know Daz was taking some pictures. So it's like, even though it's like you and, a few thousand of your closest friends out there, it's still nice because there is that, there is that just sort of there. It's like I can put up with Anthony Carboni for long periods of time because I get these little interactions with the Anthony Daniels one, which I know that they are good friends. It gets a little weird after a while, and you're going, okay, I get that. But sometimes, when they're talking to the audience, everything they say kind of falls short because we can't hear the reaction from when they're kind of going and they're trying to do a joke, and it just sounds like it just falls flat. Because maybe a good percentage of the audience doesn't understand what I'm just there to see the thing, and I don't really, the English. But it's just one of those where it's like,
or they're Japanese that don't speak English.
Yeah, I think there were some translation issues, but they had the nice thing was that, and we didn't get to see this a lot, and there were a couple of like the Visions panel when we get to day 3 here in a second, a lot of it was in Japanese because all of the creators, are there in Japan and they warned you ahead of time. But we as viewers from home, unfortunately missed out because we could not see whoever was doing the live stream. I guess they just didn't think about it. Chaz and I were talking about this. He's like, seems like a fail to me. And I said, well, a little bit. But if you were in the room, you saw the translation on the screen. They had the translation. So obviously the majority of what was going on was in English. So they were putting the Japanese translation up on all those screens all weekend long. Mm-hmm. And then for that panel, and then a couple of things on the live stage when they brought people out to talk to them. When they brought people out, and same thing. But we couldn't see above them, but above them was that screen, and the translations were going, along on the screen. So, and I know during the heroic sidekick panel that Ashley did, which was fantastic. She even did a shout out to the translators and how well it was going and how much they all appreciated how they were doing that all weekend long, that people were, even though it might not have been quite up to exactly what they were saying as they were saying it, obviously a little bit of a lag, but we, unfortunately, for a couple of those things, we're like, oh, I have no idea what they're saying. And so that's when I went to Twitter.
Yep.
And followed the people.
helpful.
Star Wars Holocron. Boy, those folks, they were on it, man. They were putting things out there. A couple other people that I followed, and like because they were getting the translation. They were in the room and they were seeing the translation. I'm like, oh, that's what, so I'm like jotting it down. So yeah.
That's funny. Did anybody else, when Anthony Daniels was, the bit about he was signing the book to, did anybody else like wonder, like, in their head try to do the math on how much that would have cost you or me to have Anthony Daniels do that whole big thing? $500 of dollars.
Oh yeah, probably. Absolutely.
Anyway. All right. So day 3, right? This is probably arguably the one I missed nearly all of it. So
there wasn't a lot.
Okay.
Earlier today?
I'll go back.
Yeah, exactly.
Earlier today.
I slept about 4 hours since then. Yes.
So, any really other than the Fortnite announcement, I sloughed that off. I'm like, nah, it's a money making machine. Anything real big happen on day 3?
Well, the Visions panel was the biggest announcement driver of the day. Volume 3 is coming out in October. So if you haven't watched Volume 1 or 2 yet, now is your chance to get on board with that. But
if you have time to do anything else in the next 2 or 3 weeks,
because you got
June's open.
But particularly Volume 1, because 3 of the shorts on Volume 1 are kind of getting sequel.
Yes.
In the new Volume 3, which I think is awesome. That was something that I was curious about, if they would do something like that. So a couple of studios are returning and are continuing those stories, particularly The Duel, The Ninth Jedi, and there's one other one I can't.
The Village Bride.
There we go.
Nice.
And they kind of gave some teases as to what those stories will entail and where they'll go from there. And then there's, I think, 6 other shorts that are new stories. There's one with a kind of caretaker droid named Billy who has a microwave for a belly. So I think sounds. He looks really adorable. Got to see a little clip of him, and that was great. And at the end of the panel, they announced that the Ninth Jedi from Volume 1 is kind of getting. I don't really understand how they're doing this, but they're expanding it even further into like a limited series.
Yeah,
so I don't know if that means we're just taking the original
Yeah.
story and then turning
so.
that into 9 episodes, or that's like episode 1, and then they're making like more episodes after it, and just telling this whole big story here. So find out more details in the next year or so, because this comes out in 2020. But the Star Wars Visions Presents is what they're calling it. New long form adaptation of stories from previous Visions games that they're giving this like long form to. So that's exciting, because I liked a lot of the stuff in Volume 1 and Volume 2, and I was like, my initial question is, will I ever see a sequel to any of these? And it looks like a lot of these are getting sequel and potentially be extrapolated into longer form content.
One of them that Chaz and I talked about that we would love to see a sequel to, and I said to him, I said they only announced for the longer format one. They only announced the Ninth Jedi, but I'm thinking we love the twins. The
that's a good one too.
And like, oh man, that would be great if that would be one of the Visions Presents and do a long format of the twins. So hopefully, but it sounds like it is going to be, like they said, like a little mini series they're going to do, and maybe even the episodes will be a little bit longer than just the 15 minutes or so that these shorts are, from the way they were talking about it. So Chaz is a huge anime fan, and he's drugged me into a lot of the anime shows, and they're excellent. And it's a whole different thing. Like, I remember when Visions first came out, and on CWK when Dan was still doing the live shows, and Blake Weaver is a huge anime fan, and he was just so, he was excited when Visions came out, and so some of those things were there. But one of the things that they talked about in that panel when they were speaking English and we could understand them was because they did some of that too in the visions, like they did in the animation panel. Is a lot of it was in Japanese, but understandably, but was the fact that Star Wars wouldn't exist as it is had the Japanese culture not been such an influence on George, and all the things that he pulled. I mean, he pulled from a lot of different places, obviously, and we all know that. We all know the stories, but and people I heard people say, well, why are they going to Japan for a celebration? And it's like, do you not understand? do you not see?
The answer is, why are they not?
Yeah,
going
exactly.
to Japan, right?
And why haven't they done it more often is interesting. So but I mean, we're excited, and I mean, we loved both seasons. Some shows more than others, obviously, but really excited to see what they're going to do in 2026 with those expanded stories.
What anything else other than that, or other than the last thing we'll have to announce, which was the announcement of the announcement? Are anything else there, Mare?
Well, the only other panel that I thought was really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. I'm glad they showed it. I was kind of surprised that they showed it, was the one that Ashley Eckstein did with Alan Tudyk and Anthony Daniels and Ahmed Best, the heroic sidekicks. And they're like, wait a minute, we don't like that word sidekicks. and the play between Ahmed and Anthony was really good. You could tell that
very good.
That they've known each other obviously for more than 20 years now, and that they seem to get along and be friends. Poor Alan, sometimes I think he kind of felt like the third wheel.
He certainly did.
But,
he put his mic down to sit there.
I know he did, and I got tickled. Ahmed kind of sort of took over at one point, and I'm thinking in my head, Ash, you got to rein him in. You got to rein him in. But it was really good, and I thought they did. I think they could have talked for another 2 hours between the four
Easily.
of them. But they were right. One of the things that they talked about is the fact that so much of what we as the audience witness in all of these shows and movies is sometimes through the sidekick, through like Clone Wars, we saw through Ahsoka the majority of the time. The original saga we saw through C-3PO and R2. And of course R2 knows it all. He never had his mind wiped, and he has all the secrets. He knows everything from the beginning. And of course Jar Jar and the wonderment of what was going on, around him, and Phantom Menace, mainly, I guess. But how, and it's not just Star Wars. So many different shows and movies are like that the audience is viewing through sometimes that sidekick, what they're experiencing. So I thought it was a really good, and they did the same thing. They commented on how the support of other people to help them, and the things that they did to help one another. And so it was I think if you didn't see that panel, it's a good one to go back and search. And I'm hoping Anthony, you might know this because I know you've been searching a little bit more than I have, but I'm hoping that the panel that Ashley did with like Vanessa Marshall and some of the others, I can't remember what the name. Oh, the Star of the Stars panel. They didn't show that, but I've seen a couple of just stills and a couple little snippets. I'm like, oh gosh, So there are a few of them that I'm hoping over the next few days, because people were sitting there recording them.
Yep. Right.
So
and or live tweeting or messaging something.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping that some of those that we'll be able to go back, even if they're not official, because a lot of times I don't think that Disney and Lucasfilm really are too concerned about some of those things that get out there. It's just those sizzle reels and the trailers are the things that I think that they're concerned about and take down. But
kind of letting them out there a little bit, and then
all
right,
they
y'all saw it.
Bye. Yep. Take it down.
Yeah.
All right.
The last thing that I will say in terms of news that came out on that day, but it wasn't a streamed panel, was there was a bit of a parks presentation too.
Oh
that
yeah, that's
day.
the other one I want to watch. I hope
And
somebody recorded it.
yeah, at the very least, they were on the live stage and they talked basically all the announcements that they shared there. But it was mostly about the update that's coming in May 2026 for the Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run Ride.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Going to have Mandalorian and Grogu infused into it. Honda will still be a part of the ride. They kind of show details about how the story will change slightly and how you're going to actually go to different planets now from this excursion. So you'll go to first, and then afterwards, the engineer of the ride has the ability to pick and not only interact with Mandalorian and Grogu, so that'll make that position a bit more desirable for folks other than just push buttons.
Or drop cargo in my case.
Exactly, yeah, drop cargo too. People will have in that role will have the chance to choose whether to go to Bespin, the crash site of the second Death Star, or Coruscant. Yep. So cool things across the board there. It won me over a bit more because I was curious about how they'll update this and where it will kind of folks. And I love the animatronic.
He's already paid for, so you got to put him in there.
You got to keep him involved there and all that, and so it kind of keeps the through line of what Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run represents to Bat 2, still in rather than just like revamping it and just making random Star Wars ride in this land.
Right.
Yeah, I know a couple of people have been concerned. Few people were like, "Well, is it taking away that timeline that Batu was built on?" And I guess it is. But the other thing is, they've kind of taken that timeline away from Batu.
They've been playing
West.
with it too.
They've been playing with it. They haven't been playing with it on our side, Anthony, but they really have been playing with it over on the west side.
Honestly, if the Star Cruiser was still around, I think they'd mess with it over here.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's the reason that they haven't really messed with it much until now. So, But one of the things, the other thing that I wish they would have shown, and I hope some people record it. I'm going to go, after I sleep tomorrow all day, and get over my jet lag that without the jet. Is the Doug Chang panels. I've seen a couple of people pop a few things up, and Nick Tierce was at that panel and was asking Doug about Galaxy's Edge and Star Cruiser specifically, and he shared that on his socials, and it was a really interesting question and an interesting answer. And those of us who are Star Cruiser people, we're like, but yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things that came and went, and it's almost like, okay, now we need to just sort of, like, I know with you, with your threads, going through and kind of, and I've already listened to your episode that you dropped, 5:00 this morning.
That's right.
So I'm like, let me get Anthony. Let me listen to this. So even before I knew that we were going to be on together, I'm like, okay, Anthony just dropped that. So let me see what all he said. And he feels better. He sounds better.
It's been quite a journey over the last couple of days here. I'll tell you what. A little rough
podcast to queue. All right, there we go.
That's right.
Yeah, but anyway, but the live, I really enjoyed the live stage, and it was so funny that after that very first opening shot on Thursday night and they even started it earlier than what they said they were going to start it, but I already had it up and running, and I was like, oh, it's going, and I sent message to people, went, okay, here we go, guys, but the crowd was huge the whole time. I mean, I'm sure there were times when it did disperse out some, but boy, most of the time. And so I said to Greg and others, like, okay, the secret is out. People have figured out about the live stage.
People figured Celebration out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we talked about that at the top of the show. Absolutely.
I mean, they said it was the biggest one ever this time around, and it's only going to keep getting bigger and better.
Yeah.
From here
well,
on
we
out.
were and we were having that discussion, about how do they come up with that count? I heard a number of network people and social people say that they, the count was 100,000, but how do they come up with that count? Because the people like Christina and Kendra that went, they bought their tickets after the 3-day multipass was gone, so they both had 3 individual tickets. So were the two of them counted as 6 people because they had a ticket each day, and how many people, and because a lot of people, like Amy was asking earlier, why would people buy three, a ticket each day? And I said, well, the badges, people will buy
That too.
individual day tickets, even though they're going to be there the whole time because they want that badge. And I had said to Christina and Kendra, I said, if you get into the Celebration store, and I don't know that they ever did, that you can order. They started letting you purchase the Celebration badges, and I've got quite a few sets of them, and I would love to have that set, but
It was a gorgeous set.
they were gorgeous. Those are yeah, and those are probably the nicest ones we've had for a while, if ever, and we've had some nice ones. We've had some ones that weren't quite as nice, but those are beautiful. But and when they do that, when they sell those badges, it's the whole set except for the VIP. They never sell the VIP badge, but you don't get them until you can't even. I mean, they don't even have them there. You order them and then they mail them to you. So.
Well, see, and the other thing is that, every time the 4-day or the full, like the 3-day or 4-day badges will sell out. And I can only imagine, next year, which I think is that when they probably, in the spring or whatever, when they'll cut it for sale, the servers are going to go down. And that's another thing. It's like
they do every time.
Yeah, and of course, one of the reasons why, the other reason why people buy the single days is because either, that's the only way you can get in. Thing I'm worried about is that, like I'm going in just going like, I don't even know, like 2 years out is whatever, but I will still get it if I can. And if not, I'll just have to string the days together because those things, those days did sell out. And, like, hey, it's great that you do get the individual ones, and it also says, like, you know how much all this put together is? A lot more than the full day. So I would say for anybody who is considering going to the next one, which we'll get to the announcement of here in a second, that get your finger clicking button ready, because once those go, make your decision in the next year. Make your decision.
And it might be sooner than the next year, because I'm telling you, Greg, there have been times that it's only been a month or two after it's been announced, and they will go on sale.
Oh yeah, they're like, we like money. We can go ahead.
Yeah,
and,
you get the money right away, and you get that resale market going.
That's it. You got to be Well, and they have a tight grip on that, but
but they get to control it. That's the thing.
But they get to control it. That's exactly right. But that's the difference between when Chaz and I went to the 2010 when Celebration 5. We were down here because, as some people know, I'm originally from West Virginia, but I live here in Orlando area. Like, Anthony and I are neighbors, although we never see each other except on Zoom calls, which we need to change here in a couple of weeks. But anyway, we were down here. Chaz did space camp at Kennedy Space Center all through his grade school and a couple years into middle school. And I was just sitting here watching at my aunt and uncle's, just watching TV while he's at space camp that week. And there's these local advertisements on the TV for Celebration at Orange County Convention Center that August. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't decide that we were coming until, that was the first week of July. And so I didn't buy them then. And I went home and thought about it, looked at my schedule and thought, yeah, we can do this. And I think I bought those tickets maybe 2 weeks before the con, it's kind of a thing. So yeah, not now. Although they did have some Sunday tickets that popped up, because, I'm crazy and I downloaded the Celebration app. And so I was getting notifications all weekend of, this line is capped and, blah, 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 blah. And they did put a thing out before, early on their Sunday morning. So last night for us, that there were some Sunday tickets available. So I don't know whether or not, people were there to buy them, but that's, that's unusual.
I know for Chicago, I think I bought because I went that Monday or the last day.
I
bought it in January of that year. It was, I think at that time, a lot of the other days had sold out, and I decided I was going to go. I've been on the fence whether I was going to go or not. I didn't quite know what the journey I was getting into in 2019 when I started this whole shindig. But I also remember that at Anaheim in 2022, I think I had bought the first 2 days, and then I think I decided, because I Dr. Cass actually put me up for the night, and so I think I actually bought
I remember
an additional
that
day. But I might have bought it on the fly there. So it's one of those things where it's like, but I would say at this time, especially now that it's in Los Angeles, it's back on U.S. soil for the first time in 5 years. I think you're all, and I think if you buy early enough, it's like anything else. Like this year for C2E2, I bought it well in advance, and yes, it was a little cheaper, but it was nice because I actually got my badge and I was able to activate it. C2 is a Reed Pop show too. I was able to activate it at home, which was great because then I didn't have to go into the will call line to pick it up, to sit there and you're trying to activate with shoddy Wi-Fi. And we knew going into Japan that a lot of those folks, I'd love to hear when we get it poll Ross and Des about how bad the Wi-Fi or anything.
They told them. Oh, they told them it was on the app that there would not be Wi-Fi available, and there would be certain areas that they could, but to download everything, to screen capture, if you had a barcode for photo ops or panels or whatever, to screen capture it or bring it printed, that the Wi-Fi would not be available. They warned them. So if anybody was complaining about it, then shame on them, because I saw it half a world away, and they continually put up information about it.
But the next one, I'm expecting good Wi-Fi because segue. Thank you very much. The last announcement was the one that I was paying the most attention to, being Easter Sunday as we are recording. That the next one, Anthony, tell us, when is the next celebration?
April 1st. April 1st through 4th, 2027 in Los Angeles, California at the LA Convention Center.
Not to be confused with the Anaheim Convention Center.
You'll be 45 to an hour minutes away.
Wrong place. Yes. You can go to Disneyland, but you can't go to Star Wars Celebration Los Angeles because it is at the Los Angeles Convention Center, which, I kind of had scribbled down what dates Easter where it was, and I was like, all right.
The weekend before.
The week after. Yep.
It's the week after instead of the week of, And
immediately, the LA Convention Center does look like a baseball diamond. I know that there is the large entrance and so forth, but it looks like a baseball diamond. And of course, it's next to Crypto Arena, which is where your Lester. I always want to call it the Great Western Forum, but that's not what anything.
I still want to call it the Staples Center.
Thank you. There we go.
Oh yeah.
But it is a huge complex in downtown Los Angeles. What do you think, Mayor?
Well, you know what? That was not on my radar at all, and I don't think for most other people it was either, unless you know somebody that knows somebody. But but we had all talked about, we thought it would either be, Anaheim, because it was the 50th, and it's Anaheim and it's Disneyland, and it's in California, and the 40th was here in Orlando. So to have the 40th in Orlando and the 50th in Orlando, I really didn't think that was going to happen. Although, it was kind of like, okay, let me just sleep in my own bed and not have travel and that kind of stuff. But whatever. Nope. But it's all good. But one of the things that I said to Chaz last night, and he was up with me the whole time, but he's up until all hours of the night anyway. But one of the things that I said to him last night was, I remember somebody saying back months ago, and they were thinking, well, I wonder if they wait until 2027, the Lucasfilm Narrative Art Museum should be open. And so I said to Chaz, so we were talking about that. Of course, he had no idea that was being made or built. And I said, oh yeah, it's almost finished. I said, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to open. It will definitely be open by that point. And so I put into my Google Maps the address for the Lucasfilm Narrative Art Museum and the LA Convention Center, and they're about a 10-minute drive apart from one another. Doesn't look like it's something you want to walk, because it looked like there were lots of big highways between here and there.
Also,
But
LA's not a walkable city. I'll be honest.
no, not at
It's a
all.
little spread out.
And then I said, my space nerdy heart, the shuttle Endeavor is right there close to the museum as well. There's a lot of things in that little exposition area. So so I'm hoping that the Endeavor Museum will be finished. They're still working on it. But I just wonder, like some of us had talked about earlier, if they might try to do some things at the museum, whether or not they're officially part of Celebration, or if it's might be something like the day before, or whatever. So or evening kind of a thing, some special ticketed types of things, or
Anaheim
something.
had something like that where it was like there was some people. It was kind of way off. I didn't get a chance to go, but I do remember some like official type programming out there.
They did in Japan too. That the Power of the Forest group, which was like Australian and New Zealand folks, and I mean there were other people there besides Aussies and New Zealanders, but they had that special, like Ashley and Ahmed were there for that and did some things. So I mean, I think sometimes it depends on who you know and what group you're with, and that kind of thing. So.
Anthony, party in LA, right? What do you think?
I'll be there. I speculated Anaheim, but pretty close dartboard for LA, only being an hour away. I think this is awesome for several reasons. I think first off, for future celebrations, I think that this is gold standard moving forward. So I think these large convention centers can hold. So I've been doing a lot of research today about this, just because I'm really intrigued about all this information here. So the best room in the LA Convention Center space can hold up to 25,000 people if they really want to. So for some of these major panels that we're anticipating, like that, we're looking for there. So they're going to fill up as many as you can. It's going to be a packed space. This is a convention center. It's in the heart of LA. It's easy to get to. LAX is one of the biggest airports in the world. And I've already looked at it. There's like 1,000 hotels within really close distance of this convention center, with it being in the location of down in LA versus, Anaheim, where you're, fighting for one of the Disney hotels or one of the Marriotts or Hiltons or anything like that close by, or you're walking 20, 30 minutes from Angel Stadium and all the way over there. So this is great for that. But I also think this is a great opportunity, because if it's in Anaheim, right, ostensibly you're thinking, okay, I'm in this kind of Anaheim bubble now, where I'm going to do Disneyland, I'm going to do some of the things in the surrounding area, the Garden Walk or all that type of stuff that's available on Catella Ave and all that. And you're generally not going into downtown LA when you're there, because of it being a distance of upwards of an hour and plus, depending on traffic. So for us Star Wars fans, this is an area of LA that we usually don't get to see when we're at celebrations. So being in that downtown area, exploring all the different things. So the El Capitan is within like a 20-minute drive from there too, that Disney owns. The Hollywood Walk of Fame on Hollywood Boulevard there, that many people probably never seen before in person, but now you get to have that opportunity at least. The Dolby Theater. Mary already said the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art opened by then. It opens in 26, so it should certainly be open for 27, I hope. On the way there, too, you can stop at USC's campus, so you can see the USC School of Cinematic Art that George Lucas basically funded, and tour that if you really want to see some like really specific George Lucas things over the years. So that's all great. But also the Scum and Villainy Cantina is on Hollywood Boulevard too. That I think will be a really hot buzzing place for people to check out over those couple of days of celebration. So I think it's great. Greg, you already noted that the Crypto.com Arena, formerly the Staples Center, formerly they probably named 1,000 other things over the years, is like really neighbors to the space there. And I got to think that the choice of LA for this was done with that specific purpose in mind, because similar to what they did at D23, where they had all the main panels of the day at the Honda Center, which was a logistical nightmare to some degree of getting people from the Anaheim Convention Center down the street to the Honda Center every evening for those events. There's no excuse for logistics. You just walk right out. It's right there. You can have some big panels there. 50th anniversary of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars Starfighter is going to be opening a month and a half after this. I was texting our buddy Colby, who lives in LA, and he's like, man, they could do a showing of A New Hope there with 20,000 people in the room on a big screen in there, and everybody in like this big basketball, hockey concert arena can watch together. That's the reason why we're here, to celebrate its 50th anniversary. I think this opens a lot of possibilities for that. And I'm already buzzing with ideas for fun things to do in the area.
Sadly, the Lakers will probably be out of town.
Yeah,
I will need both the Liz and the King be on a road trip for those 4 days, just to clear out some of the tech of the area. Because could you imagine a whole sporting event concurrent at the same time as this major convention going to have probably 50 to 7,000 people in the space on any given day? Like, it's going to be very busy.
Well, it used to be when in Chicago, they would send the Bulls and the Blackhawks out on a big road trip when the circus came to town. The Ringling Circus it'd be down there, and they'd always have what they call the circus road trip, where all of them would be down. And it's one of those things. It's if you're in the area and you grew up here, it was a rite of passage to kind of know that at this point they're all going to be road games. But yeah, in this case, I would imagine you're exactly right, Anthony, that arena is not just going to sit there not being used. They're probably, the number of people they had, because I know at, I think the UIC or in Chicago, the UIC pavilion was close or something.
Whatever's across the street, whatever's across the street from McCormick Place. They had the big panels over there. We had to walk across the street to go over there for the bigger panel in the snow. We had the Hoth day one day. So it's what happens when you go to Chicago in the springtime. Yeah.
Now, of course, there's going to be. I mean, this was announced, and once again, if you need to Google something, you talk to Anthony, because he has the eyes that look like he's been Googling all day, just like I have. As far as like you're starting to kind of know the lay of the land. We were already polling people like Colby and Jen, going, all right, let's start talking neighborhoods, just like any other vacation where you're going, all right, do we here, okay, not there. Good. Noted. And it's also going to be one of those things where, it's a little too far out to book some of these, asterisk, depending upon, what site you're using or if you're going direct. However, it's probably a good idea between now and the time those things, because obviously they'll probably be promoting, like said hotels. But if you were considering going out there, then I would start to kind of figure out, 1, your dates, 2, your tickets, B, your hotels before you start worrying about flights and things like that. And then, of course, there's going to be plenty of talk. We've got 2 years to kind of talk about, like when should I go over, what should I expect, all that stuff. Going to be plenty of stuff to talk about. But now
start saving your pennies.
Start saving your pennies. Start putting that stuff back.
Those autographs and photos don't come cheaply nowadays.
Yeah, you will get a less jet-lagged Ryan Gosling the next time. However,
100%.
Those prices
but
could go up.
Wow, that autograph and photo op already is going to be through the roof. Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Hours in line you'll have to wait, folks.
check the interest rates for certificate of deposit, or however you intend on stashing that money back.
The impending Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford meet and greet.
Oh my God!
Could you imagine if Harrison? Oh my lordy, that would be crazy.
For the right price. He'll
that man's all about money. He's so funny.
Just back up the truck. Anyway, there was a lot going on, and what's nice about all of this being on YouTube, the stuff that they are showing is that, in between viewings of Andor, which I'm kind of blocking out because I'm sort of still in denial that what's going to happen over the next 4 weeks, plus May the 4th, plus everything else that's coming out with Tales of the Underworld and all that. There's going to be a very busy 4 weeks. But before we let Mary get to sleep, because I'm
on my second win now. I'm good.
Her second win, and the same thing for Anthony. I mean, there was, with the time difference, it was going to keep people up. But that's a nice thing about YouTube. It's going to be on demand for you out there ad infinitum. Some of the stuff that you saw on TikTok will go away, but eventually you'll see it. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you, both of you. This was kind of fun. I knew we threw it out there. I'm like, whoever wants to talk about it, great. But I am happy, and I'm sure Mary's happy that, you know what, you take notes, kids, you're going to get rewarded for it. And I'm going to say, like, look, but when you're going to go back to it and you're going to go, all right, what was discussed? Like I said, some things don't materialize. Some things get kind of trampled upon. Some things didn't get their due or get their flowers. But it is nice that you can kind of go back and you can start seeking information out, whether it's books, comic books, gaming, and all that kind of stuff. Now you can start to kind of drill down after everybody gets the big headlines and they make, Good Morning America and all that kind of stuff. Now the hard part really begins, because now we're having to kind of decipher and that's what's nice, because it's I know 2 or 3 times from now, Anthony's going to drag Greg Cass back on, and he's going to make him tell him everything he knows. And it's like, Greg got out of tonight because I think he was doing another podcast, but I'm like, nah, I think Anthony's going to like corner you, and then you're going to, all right. Just like the Revenge of the Sith one. All right, you're like, the whiteboard's already going like, all right.
You should see it. It's got names on there.
Yeah, you can see it. You can kind of see it in the background there.
Yeah, no, the whiteboard, it knows all, sees all. So it's like
the list just keeps growing after a celebration. Like, oh, new topic ideas. There we go.
There you go.
Anyway, alrighty, just so we can let you go, Mary, where can people find you online? And let's have it.
Okay, so Instagram, I'm Mary N Chaz, MaryNChazz. On Facebook and X, Twitter, whatever, I'm just Mary Perdue, and it's like the chicken, Perdue, not the university. So I'm not on X as much, although boy, this weekend I was. But if you want to reach out, it'll let me know. So I'm always willing to talk about whatever with anybody.
Awesome. And Mary, once again, thank you for coming on. I'll see you back in the thread that, you step away from the thread for like a couple of minutes and you come back and there's like 30 notifications.
Oh, yeah.
And then, Ross and Daz are still traveling.
They are.
If you are hearing this, both of you, thank you very much for allowing us to see Celebration through your eyes. And I can imagine, and Aaron Harris just kind of making it back to Florida. When they hit the pillow in their homes for good, they're going to be like, at any rate. But Anthony, you have to get some sleep as well at some point,
right,
after all the live streams and your own podcast.
To work tomorrow.
I know.
That's right. 7:30 comes early.
Oh,
where can people
retirement?
Retirement.
Yeah, so thanks again for having me, Greg. You can find my podcast, Force Coast Conversations, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, really any place you can find a podcast these days. And you can also continue the conversation with us on a variety of social media platforms, including X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Just search for Force Coast Conversations, and we'll be there in some capacity.
All righty. Well, this was great. Like I said, it's a lot of I knew that anytime I pulled myself away from the TV, I was going to miss a lot. And so this was incredibly helpful to kind of get my thoughts organized. And I'm sure everybody out there listening, thanks you both for doing all the hard work, all the heavy lifting, all the note writing. I want to see Mary's journal at the end of this. It's like, we got to scan this and publish it just to kind of catch up.
You can't read it. It's so scribbled.
You haven't seen my handwriting yet. All right. This week, later on, if you're following along, the Andor Circus will begin soon, and so Greg Cass and I will be back, and hopefully we'll get some other folks on as we try to tackle the monolith that is Andor Season 2, which it's just going to be amazing. So check the feeds. Hopefully later on this week we'll have figured out a way to pull this off, and of course I'll be writing my review for in Fantha Tracks to go with the Andor Season 2 pool, as well as anything else that Mark and thank you all the guys in Fantha Tracks will be roping into. So, all right, we're going to let the rest of Card Squadron take it out. We'll talk to you soon.
I'd like to check out, refuel my ship, prepare for my immediate departure.
The Rebel Base Card podcast focuses on cards, collecting, and the Star Wars community, and appreciates you coming along for the ride.
If you have any feedback for this episode, you can reach out to the program in a number of ways. You can leave a comment on the Instagram post for this episode. You can also DM Greg on Instagram at Rebel Base Card.
Make sure to also follow the Rebel Base Card on Twitter and Facebook at Rebel Base Card. If you want, you can send an email to greg@rebelbasecard.com.
And you can find show notes for this and all episodes on the website, rebelbasecard.com. In the Star Wars Card Trader app, and just about every other one, you can find Greg at CornFedTech.
The Rebel Base Card uses the hashtag Card Squadron as a way to alert friends about cool cards and recent drops in the galaxy far, far away. It's a great way to bring our community a little bit closer together and help one another finish our sets in time. We collect, communicate, and commiserate. Well, at least when we run out of credits or crystals to spend on our digital collections. Join the fun, even if all the other cool squadron names were already taken. And remember, we collect as one, and would be honored if you join us.
And if you are a sketch card artist, or Star Wars artist or collector, cosplayer, and want to talk about your work, your craft or passion, drop Greg a line. I'm sure he'd love to hear your story. You can also help the show by leaving a comment or review on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you got this episode.
Otherwise, the mission is clear. Keep those cards out of the hands of the Empire, and the Rebel Base Card will return soon.
This podcast is not affiliated in any way with Topps, Disney, or Star Wars, nor is it endorsed by Disney or Lucasfilm, and is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All names and sounds and any other related items are properties of their respective trademarks and/or copyright holders here in the U.S. and abroad. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com.
That's it.